I tried a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokémon FireRed using only flying type Pokémon. Flying type Pokémon are great even though they face many weaknesses, like being touched by an ice cube, or being electrocuted, and even being pelted by rocks. And with some terrible threats awaiting us later in this challenge, it's gonna be hard. In a Nuzlocke, if a Pokemon faints, it's dead forever, and I can only encounter the first flying type Pokemon per new area. The rest of the rules for this playthrough are on the screen and in the description down below. Let's jump right into it. As per usual, a Nuzlocke starts by picking a starter. This is a rare exception where I actually can use my starter, though not after getting 4 gym badges, because my true starter here, Charmander, can't actually fly until he evolves into a powerful Charizard. He has to learn to fly. Okay, that was a bad pun. This does mean our rival Land gets Squirtle, but this thing won't be an issue, right? And then immediately after this, we find his replacement being a Pidgey simply named Bird. Bird here is going to be an instrumental plan in this game, and without him, we might not even be able to pass the challenge. You'll see what I mean in a minute. And with that, Charmander goes into the void of my PC. Don't worry, he'll be back, but he needs to go on a solo journey to discover his outer wings. In Viridian Forest, I go ahead and find a Caterpie. Caterpie is an amazing bug type, but when he evolves in this level cap, he'll be an amazing Pokemon. Take a guess at what Pokemon's can be more useful. Welcome to the team, Chicken. And no, I did not mean to rip off Flygon HG, it's just a coincidence. I also catch a Spear named Falcon, who is a pretty decent encounter, but he's just really here for the long run. With that, my trio of flyers are in Pewter City and are ready to face Brock for the first gym badge. He uses rock types and things aren't looking too good, but luckily I have a play here. Brock leads off with his Geodude and I lead off with Chicken, who's now fully evolved. Chicken knows Confusion and Poison Powder, so a combination of that eventually gets Geodude in the yellow HP range. Once this thing is low enough, I gotta switch out in the Bird here on a tackle. Eventually, some quick attacks take care of Geodude and Butterfree gains a level and learns Sleep Powder, which is a complete necessity for this fight and a bunch of other battles. Last is Onix, and this thing normally gets a ton of flack for being weaker than Oddish, but this thing does pose a threat. Luckily it just misses a bind, so I can go for a couple of sand attacks until it just takes me out with a Rock Tomb, killing Bird, marking the first death of the challenge. At the very least, Bird's death lets me get a free switch into Chicken. With the extra level, which is allowed by the way, I'm able to put Onix to sleep with a Sleep Powder. With Onix being asleep, I'm able to hit 2 Confusions for around a third of Onix's HP before it eventually wakes up and goes for a Rock Tomb, leaving me in the yellow and lowering my speed. But then Onix on the next turn just misses a Rock Tomb, meaning I'm able to go for a Confusion to take it out, winning me the battle and the first gym badge. Honestly, if I'm losing to Pokemon here, it's definitely going to be Bird, because this thing is as weak as it can get. In the Pokemon Center, I pick up a Magikarp, which will be a great Pokemon when it evolves into a Gyarados. Welcome to the team, Blue Jay. I also catch a Zubat in Mount Moon named Bat, another decent encounter. With these encounters, we're in Cerulean City, home of Misty, the second gym leader. The funny thing is, Misty's water types are all part psychic types, meaning Blue Jay can kill all of her Pokemon with a few bites, winning me the second gym badge. Honestly, it's nice to just have an easy battle. After this, there's some rival fights, but they're so easy and relatively the same, so we're going to be skipping them. But watch out for this guy later. After freeing Bill from his questionable experiments, seriously, what was this guy doing? Maybe it was just a foreshadow for Infinite Fusion. Or maybe I'm foreshadowing something relating to Infinite Fusion. I don't know. Anyway, it's not like it matters, because we're facing Surge and his Electric types for badge number 3. His Pokemon are scary with Thunder Shocks, and who am I kidding? Falcon sweeps all of his Pokemon with Secret Power, winning me the 3rd gym badge. Okay, I promise all battles won't be sweeps. By the way, if you find any of this interesting, I recommend subscribing for more Pokemon content, and tell me your favorite flying type down in the comments below. With that, we make it to Rock Tunnel, my least favorite part of the game. There are a lot of Geodudes and Onixes here, but by using Blue Jay and avoiding most of them, I get out scot-free and make it to Cerulean City, the land of opportunity. In the game corner, I pick up Richardini, who can't evolve until the end of the game, but will be a great encounter when he does. I also catch a Doduo named 3Bird, which is another pretty good Pokemon. After this, I take a quick rest at Erica's gym and click Wing Attack a few times for the 4th gym badge. See, in Fire Red and Leaf Green, gym leaders weren't carefully planned, so they're easily checked by common Pokemon, resulting in a lot of easy sweeps. With a massive level cap increase, we can take Cardinal out of the box, who's learned to fly and can easily evolve into a Charizard and finally grow a pair of wings. 3 Bird, not wanting to feel left out, also evolves into Dodrio, a phenomenal Pokemon. With that, we're off to face Giovanni. Normally I'd skip this battle, but he uses Rock type, so I thought I'd mention it. Anyway, he leads with Onix and I lead off with Chicken. It's the same thing here, I put it to sleep, but instead of spamming Confusion, I just spam Giga Drain courtesy of Erica. Second is Rhyhorn, and this thing does not even pose the slightest threat at all, as I just outspeed and get the clean one-shot with a Giga Drain. Last is Kangaskhan, and Chicken's a bit too weak to outspeed, so I switch out into Cardinal on a fake out for some chip damage. After this, I'm able to go for 2 flamethrowers to get the knockout, winning me the battle and the fight against Giovanni. And then immediately after this, we're off to face Land in another rival fight. He leads with Pidgeot and I lead off with 3 Bird, who outspeeds it a Tri-Attack for a third as he tanks a Wing Attack. On the following turn, a Tri-Attack brings Pidgeot into the red as he hits a Wing Attack, bringing me into the yellow. Luckily, on the following turn, a final Tri-Attack picks up the KO. Second is a very intimidating Puppy. Since I'm low, I gotta switch out into Blue Jay on a Flame Wheel. On the next turn, a Bite does some chip damage before I have to tank a takedown for a smidge. I then hit another Bite as Growlithe flips a takedown. By the time it's all said and done, Growlithe is dead and I'm in the yellow HP range as Execute comes in. I hit a Bite for around half before being paralyzed with a Stun Spore. Execute on the next turn, then outspeeds, hit a Confusion before I hit a Bite to get the KO. Fourth is Alakazam, and I stay in as this thing outspeeds, hit a Future Sight before I'm able to go for a Bite. On the next turn, it's off the Falcon on a failed Future Sight. Alakazam then sets up a Calm Mind to no avail as a Secret Power gets the KO. Nice try. Last is Blastoise, and something I noticed is that Future Sight failed to add insult to injury. Anyway, a few Secret Powers get the KO, winning me the battle. Anyway, it's off to Saffron City to face Sabrina and their Psychic types for badge number 5. And yeah, it's another sweep, but what could you expect? 3 Bird is killing it, literally. Something I like to point out is that at one point Sabrina switches her Mr. Mime out into Venomoth. And like, why would you do that? I'm using Fly. Why would you switch out your Bug, who is weak, to my Fly? Anyway, I win the 5th gym badge completely deathless and we're moving on. Immediately after this, we're off to Fuchsia City to face Koga, the Poison-type gym leader for badge number 6. And yeah, it's just a chicken click Psychic multiple times kind of sweep. However, when I was writing the script for this video, I realized this was pretty stupid because an unlucky critical hit or poison could have killed me. But it didn't, and we're moving on with 6 gym badges underneath our belt. With that, we're in Cinnabar, home of our final encounter. By going to the lab and restoring the old Amber, we get an Aerodactyl, which is a phenomenal Pokemon. This does mean we have to say goodbye to Bat, who will be missed but will enjoy his retirement in the PC. With that, we're facing Blaine, the Fire-type gym leader. And yeah, once again it's a super easy sweep as I set up a Rain Dance and then go to town with Surfs. Arcanine actually survives a Rain boosted Surf due to Gyarados' horrible special attack stat, and then Blaine heals and my Surf low rolls, but then I pick up the KO, winning me the battle and the 7th gym badge. And immediately after this, we're off to face Giovanni for the final gym badge. Against his first 2 Rhyhorns, Chicken picks up the KO with some Giga Drains. And then against his lead Doug trio, I switch out into Blue Jay, who just pulls a sweep from here. Also, one thing I noticed is I didn't even level up to the level cap. Anyway, that's all 8 gym badges obtained. With that, we're at the Pokemon League. 5 trainers stand in the way of victory, but I think I have a play here, but it's not going to be easy as the sweeps end here. For starters, I bring out Parrot the Dratini and put Falcon the Pharaoh in the PC so he can enjoy his retirement. I then evolve Parrot the Dragonair, who will be a key Pokemon in my plan. My final team is Parrot the Dragonite, Cardinal the Charizard, Chicken the Butterfree, Blue Jay the Gyarados, Penguin the Aerodactyl, and 3 Bird the Dodrio. Let's do this. The first trainer in the Elite Four is Lorelei, arguably our worst matchup with our ice types, but luckily I have a play. She leads off with Dugong and I lead off with Chicken. Chicken outspeeds to put Dugong to sleep before it knows what happens. On the next turn, I set up a Sunny Day as Dugong stays luckily asleep. On the next turn, I outspeed to hit a Solar Beam for more than half of Dugong's HP as this thing stays asleep. And then on the following turn, another Solar Beam gets the KO on Dugong. Lorelei's second Pokemon is a Slowbro, and it's the same process here as I just put Slowbro to sleep with another Sleep Powder. Chicken also has compound eyes, so that means my sleep powers are usually pretty accurate. A solar beam on the following turn does massive damage with Slowbro's HP as this thing stays asleep, and then on the next turn the sun fades, meaning I have to go for 2 turn solar beams instead of 1 turn. This means I risk Slowbro waking up and getting a crit, but it doesn't happen and a final solar beam picks up the KO. Third is Jinx, and this thing hits a massive ice punch, bringing me down to just 43 HP before I put this thing to sleep with a sleep powder. From here it's off to Cardinal as Jinx stays asleep. On the next turn, a flamethrower gets the clean one-shot. Lorelei's 4th Pokemon is a Cloyster, and this thing is so weak that a neutral flamethrower just gets the KO. 5th and last is Lapras, and I stay in and I hit a flamethrower for around 40% before taking a massive Surf, leaving me in the yellow HP range. From here it's off to Blue Jay on a baited Surf. Luckily this thing can't really hit me for super effective damage, so I just set up some Dragon Dances as this thing just goes for some Ice Beams. Unfortunately I don't KO fast enough and I'm in the red, meaning I gotta switch out into Penguin, who gets immediately frozen by an Ice Beam. Way to go buddy, living up to your name. Anyway, it's back off to Cardinal on another Ice Beam. Luckily on the following turn I'm able to outspeed and just pick up the KO with another flamethrower, winning me the battle, meaning there's only 4 trainers left. Second is Bruno. He leads off with Onix and I lead off with Blue Jay. Onix starts things off great by missing a Rock Tomb as I set up a Rain Dance. On the next turn, a Rain Boosted Surf gets the KO on the Rock Snake. No more Sleep Powder anymore. Second is Hitmonchan, and a Rain Boosted Surf does around half of its HP as it misses another Rock Tomb. Man, Bruno cannot get a break. This means a follow-up Surf gets the KO. Third is Machamp, and he tanks a Surf and finally connects with an attack being a Rock Tomb for a smidge, but it does lower my speed. The rain does also stop, so that's not fun. A second Surf brings the Muscle Man in the yellow as he whiffs a Cross Chop and heals up with a Berry. Machamp then hits a nasty Cross Chop on the next turn before a Surf leaves him in the red. Machamp then heals and I stay in, doing a bit of chip damage with a Surf. On the following turn I gotta switch out into Cardinal. Luckily his Cross Chop does a little bit of damage, meaning I'm able to go for a Wing Attack which leaves this thing barely alive, but it just whiffs another Rock Tomb. This means a follow-up Wing Attack gets the KO. Fourth is Hitmonlee, but this thing is just so weak that 1 Wing Attack gets the KO. Last is Rock Snake numero dos, and I cannot believe I'm saying this, but I switch out into Parrot on a double edge. On the next turn, an Ice Beam gets the clean one-shot, winning me the battle against Brain Dead Bruno. Third is Agatha, the Poison Trainer. She leads off with Haunter, and I lead off with Cardinal. I had a Flamethrower bringing this thing in the yellow as it sets up an annoying double team. Agatha then heals back to full as I go for another Flamethrower, bringing Gengar into the red. Agatha doesn't heal, allowing me to pick up the KO with a Flamethrower. Second is Golbat, who survives a Flamethrower in the yellow, but just hits a weak Air Cutter in retaliation. This means a second Flamethrower gets the KO. Third is Arbok, who also lives a Flamethrower, but just hits a Screech in retaliation. I then make a pretty stupid mistake as I hit a Wing Attack, allowing Arbok to live, and then fire off a Sludge Bomb, bringing me down into the red. At the very least, a follow-up Wing Attack gets the KO, which baits out Gengar numero dos. Since I'm low on HP, I switch out into Parrot on a Sludge Bomb. On the next turn, I get hit with another Sludge Bomb before I paralyze Gengar with a Thunder Wave. An Ice Beam on the following turn then connects for around a third of its HP as I then get put to sleep with a Hypnosis. Not wanting to deal with Hypnosis shenanigans, I switch out into 3-Bird on a failed Nightmare. Luckily on the next turn, I'm able to go for a Drill Peck to knock Gengar out, leaving just Haunter. But he too meets the same fate as 1 Drill Peck seals the deal, winning me the battle and the 3rd Elite 4 member fight. Last is Birdkeeper Lance and his kind of Dragon types. Honestly, I thought he was going to be the biggest challenge until I learned Parrot can learn Thunderbolt and Ice Beam, meaning I'm able to sweep his entire team, winning me the battle and the final Elite 4 member fight. On to the champion. Last is the champion Land, and his team is terrifying. There's no way we're going to make it out with all 6 members of my team surviving. He leads off with his Pidgeot and I lead off with Parrot. Somehow this thing manages to outspeed to the Wing Attack before a critical hit Thunderbolt picks up the KO. Parrot levels up to level 61 and learns Outrage, which is a great move due to its massive damage output, and it's finally a stab move for my Dragon type. Second is Rhyhorn, who lives in Ice Beam, but all he does is hit a Scary Face in retaliation. Rhydon on the following turn then gets off a takedown for decent damage before an Ice Beam gets the KO. Third for land is Alakazam, and this thing outspeeds to the Psychic, leaving me in the right HP range before I go for an Outrage, doing around half. I know what must happen. Alakazam then goes for a Future Sight before an Outrage picks up the KO. Fourth is Exeggutor, and this thing just outspeeds to hit an Egg Bomb, ending Parrot's life. RIP buddy, you weren't with us long, but you made such an impact. At the very least, Cardinal's able to come in and get the KO with a Flamethrower as a revenge kill. Land's fifth Pokemon is a Blastoise, and this thing is super scary. I also take the Future Sight on the first turn, so that's not good. In fact, Cardinal hits a Slash for some chip damage before being destroyed by a Hydro Pump. RIP buddy. At the very least, Chicken is able to come in and take a Hydro Pump before he's able to put Blastoise to sleep with a Sleep Powder like he always does. On the next turn, I set up a Sunny Day to weaken Blastoise's Hydro Pump. And then I go for a Giga Drain to regain some of my HP from the Hydro Pump. But then Blue makes a pretty weird decision on the next turn. He switches out into Arcanine, and this is actually such a huge problem because the sun is up. A Solar Beam obviously doesn't do any damage, and Chicken is dead to whatever comes out next. I switch out into Blue Jay on a Flamethrower. Luckily on the following turn, Arcanine just goes for a weak Flamethrower even with the sun up. This allows me to offset the sun with a Rain Dance. Arcanine then connects with a Bite on the following turn before being killed by a Surf. Last is Blastoise, and this thing immediately comes in and wakes up, and it's a hard Hydro Pump before I hit a Bite, bringing Blastoise down to his berry. This is horrible. Blastoise just became harder to kill. In fact, he kills Blue Jay with a Hydro Pump on the next turn. At the very least, I'm able to get a free switch into 3-Bird, who's probably my best option. 3-Bird is luckily able to outspeed and go for a Fly, which luckily avoids Blastoise's Hydro Pump. A Fly then brings Blastoise back into the yellow HP range. And then, he's able to go for a Drill Peck, boosted by all the dead Pokemon to KO Blastoise, winning me the battle and the entire run. Well, that was definitely a weird one for sure. It's crazy how Butterfree ended up being the MVP of the run, and even ended up being more useful than Pokemon like Charizard and Dragonite. This just goes to show how underrated some Pokemon are during Nuzlockes. The difficulty spiked so much. The first 90% of the playthrough was a breeze compared to the last 10% of fights in the playthrough. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to support me, you can follow me on Twitter or subscribe to the YouTube channel for more videos. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day. If you want to watch more of my content, I recommend this video here. Alright, peace.